anyway, we're here every Sunday. What? Start our week off on a better way. Because like anything else, that in the way we start something is the way it's going to go. Right? It's the same thing. How many of you ever woke up on the wrong side of the bed? Exactly. So can you tell me which is the wrong side? The right, the left, the front, or the back? Which is the wrong side? The side you get up on. Exactly. Meaning there is no wrong side. It's the way we wake up. Right? It's the consciousness that we wake up. So we're here every week to set the consciousness and set the pattern already for the week ahead of us. That it will already be one filled with blessings and peace and happiness and joy rather than anything else. So of course, the only way that's going to happen is not only our own awakening, but also how we deal with other people, how we awaken other people. And that's why we always start out with, we're going to do that in a minute when we get online, but we always start out with saying hello to everybody. How can we be happier and more joyous if we're not spreading joy and happiness to everyone else? So please, let's stand up and hug and wish each other a great spiritual Sunday. It's so great. I know some of you know for the last few weeks we are now streaming not only on Facebook. Okay, we're not only streaming on Facebook, but we're also streaming on Kabbalah.com. So we want to wish a happy spiritual Sunday to all those people. Let's say hi, let them know we're here. We appreciate the fact that you're joining us. So, because we've reached around the world through Facebook, but now we have all the students of the center, everybody who's registered on Kabbalah.com can not only learn all the other classes we have, from all the different teachers, but they can also now live stream Spiritual Sunday. So they have access. So we've just added a few thousand people to our Spiritual Sunday family. So that's really great. And it's all credited to you. You're the ones who keep showing up, and you're the ones who spread the word. So the faster, remember, everything is energy. So you say to yourself, well, but I only share it with people on my Facebook page. But you have no idea. Don't they say 6 degrees of separation? Yeah. So you have no idea. You just spread it on your Facebook page, and it reaches out to somebody who reaches somebody who reaches somebody. And imagine, how many people do you think are looking for this? How many people want a better life, want to be able to take control over their life? Do you think billions, or do you think nobody? Everybody wants to have control over their life. The trouble is, they've been taught in so many different ways, it's all confusing. But you and I, by learning Kabbalah, we can all distill it down to its simplest understanding, and then makes more sense of whatever religion, culture, background, spiritual teachings you've heard before. And that's the beauty of it. We bring it down to its essence, and then we can unite every human being on earth. And that's what people are looking for. We're not asking people to be a different religion or background or what have you. We're just asking them to be different people. See, they're already dancing out there. Okay. That's all. Don't you want to be the best you that the Creator created you to be? Yes, because what comes along with being a better us? Better world and better life. Who wants more peace and love and harmony and joy and prosperity and protection and peace of mind and serenity? Anybody here? Okay, anybody out there? Okay, I'm looking to see. Right? Everybody wants it. So that's what we're giving them here. Look around the room. Look, if you could see all the people that are out there, do you think we're all the same? No, different cultures, different backgrounds, and I keep hearing from more and more people. We have people in the Middle East, the Far East, in places you couldn't imagine anybody having a desire or an interest in Kabbalah. They're in Kabbalah. I mean, I've shared the story 32 years ago when I started. I couldn't imagine these kind of people from all these different countries and background coming to be connected to the center. It was a vision of all the Kabbalists. It was a vision of my teachers, the Rav Berg and Karen Berg, but I frankly couldn't see it. I was just trying to expand what we were doing wherever I was. A little more people in New York or a little more people in LA, etc. And then all of a sudden in, I guess it must have been the mid-90s, then came this thing called the internet. I don't know why we're going here for a minute, even before the affirmation. But you remember when you first heard of the internet? Someone told me, you can make phone calls over this thing called the internet for free. And I'm thinking, wow, really? I mean, we could call people all over Europe and America and this and that for free? I thought that was a great thing. Of course, I had no concept how it worked, right? Now, I still have no concept how it works, but I know it works, right? Because I keep hearing from those people. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so I'll embarrass myself a little bit. I used to really wonder, when I first started to get this internet thing, I used to wonder if it just wasn't people who were out there who were kind of faking it. You know, saying like, hi, I'm from Australia, or hi, I'm from New Zealand, or hi, I'm from like this. I thought, yeah, sure, they're probably around the corner and they're writing on here and just, I mean, it was hard for me to grasp that. Can you imagine, right now here, we're here in this room in Boca Raton, and yet we're in the living rooms, in the offices of the homes of people in Hong Kong, in Norway, I mean, all over the Middle East, all over Europe, South America. That's hard for me to grasp. We're live to these people. So you and I are having an impact on all those people, and the more we keep our consciousness that it is not only impacting us, but impacting the whole world, then the more impact we will have. Because our only limitation is the extent that we send the light out, and the only limitation on that is our certainty and our belief that we have the power of the Creator, and by sending it out, we're impacting the Creator in every human being on earth. And that's why we're going to start here with our affirmation. So if I can ask you to say it together, and those of you who are watching, now you can join us also. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. What a great way to start off. If we would just do one more act of kindness outside our comfort zone, we're going to touch somebody who touches somebody who touches somebody, and it multiplies exponentially. That's what's been happening in the 32 years I'm in the center. And that's what we want your support and your help to make it happen even faster. There are 7.5 billion people on the planet, and we probably haven't even reached 500 million yet. But you and you can make it happen if we all just share this wisdom, period. So let's go on and let's see what we'll gain today. Is that okay with you? See how we'll change our lives, change our consciousness? Yes. Great. So we're going to start with somebody that you know called Thomas Edison. You ever heard of Thomas Edison? Yes. What did he invent? The light bulb, among other things, but the light bulb, right? That's what we mostly know him. Now, do you know how many experiments he had to do to find the right material to make the light bulb work? 10,000. Now, imagine, here's Thomas Edison, and he's in his laboratory, and he's got this vision of a light bulb. He understands it exists in the spiritual universe, and his work is to bring it into the physical universe. Okay? Like all of us. What's our job? Take the spiritual and make it manifest in the physical. So here he is, he's experimenting with a certain material, basically for the filament. He tries one material, it doesn't work, right? He writes down in his book, tried this material, he tries the next one and the next one. What would happen if, let's say, after 5,000, he stopped writing down the materials that he had tried? He could be doing the same thing again and again and again, right? He'd do maybe another 50, and then he'd forget, and he'd go back and he'd do one of the 50 again. When would the light bulb have been invented if he did that? Yesterday. Yesterday. Maybe yesterday, right? In other words, it probably wouldn't be. He would have never been able to progress if he didn't write down or he didn't remember what he had already tried. Is everyone clear with that? So then you and I, how many times do you write down every day what you do and how you act? Some of you maybe here and there in a journal, most of us probably not. And therefore, what are we dooming ourselves to? Repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And how do I know that we do this? How many of you ever had the same relationship 12 or 13 or 14 times? Right? We make the same mistakes. We pick a person based on whatever our parameters are. It's great and wonderful in the beginning. 3 weeks, 6 months, a year, 5 years down the line, suddenly something we didn't see shows up, and that's the end of the relationship. Now you move on, you say what? Oh, I learned. So now you pick somebody else who's maybe a little different. Maybe, I guess it works for men or women. It was a blonde, now it's a brunette, right? So now you're picking a brunette because you don't want to pick blondes anymore. And then 6 weeks later, it's the same thing again. And then you say, that's it, redhead, right? And you pick up, or then you find, no. It's because they were in certain profession. So then you promise yourself, I'll find another profession. But what you see at the end of this is what? It's the same person over and over again, just in a different body. Or we'll tend to do the same things. And because we don't remember, we don't write it down, so what will happen? My favorite. You drive down the road, somebody on the road doesn't do what you want, drive the way you want, and what happens? Whoosh, anger comes right out. What are you, a stupid driver? What's the matter with you? What's going on with you? I'm so upset. Hurry up. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know where I have to go? Don't you know what I want to achieve? But then what happens? Say, I'll learn. I'm not going to be so angry on the road. I'm going to calm down my road rage. Then you get to the supermarket. You got 3 items, and you're rushing to the 10 items or less aisle. And the person in front of you has 11 items. Are you kidding me? What are you, an idiot? You're so stupid. Don't you know who I am, where I'm going, what I've got to do, what I got to achieve? Boom, the same thing happens. And we find the same mistakes repeating again and again and again and again. Why? Because we forget. We don't realize what we are doing. And not only because we forget, but there is a force of forgetfulness. The Kabbalists explain there is a force of forgetfulness. We've boiled it down to something we call the opponent, that adversary that's sitting in our head. We can call it the ego, whatever name you want to give it, but it's there to help us forget. How many bad habits? Okay. How many times have we done our bad habit? And how many times have we promised not to do it? One-on-one. Every time I do it, I promise not to do it. Then it happens again, and I promise not to do it again. Then it happens again, and I promise not to do it. Why does it keep happening? Because we forget. 5 minutes after the instant gratification, we forget the guilt and the shame that we felt. What was I? So stupid. 6 months on a diet, and I have to give in to that chocolate chip ice cream. I'll never do that again. So that opponent in our head, if it's in our head, it's not us, but it's in our head, what does it know about us? It knows we have a weakness for chocolate chip ice cream, right? But it also knows that we have a weakness for almond horns. So now you're out to dinner with your friends, and you remember, no, chocolate chip ice cream, no way, I promised myself not. But now comes the cart, and here's these nice, delicious almond horns with beautiful looking chocolate on the ends of them. And the opponent in your head says, go for it. It's not chocolate chip ice cream. And you say, absolutely. And you eat the almond horns. And now what happens? The same thing. 20 minutes later, oh, goodness, how come I let him beat me again? Because it is that force that's there to taunt and tempt us, ultimately to make us better people. By not only remembering that it's that one thing or that one action, but it's every form of it. Because the other part is not only forgetting the particulars, but also forgetting by acknowledging it's a different situation. Like we said, so I can get angry on the street and now I slow that down, but I can be angry at the supermarket. I can be angry at the movies. You ever watch television and be angry at the television? What are you, an idiot? What are you doing? Of course you know the guy's behind the door. What are we yelling at the TV? Can they hear us? One day, I can just see now already, somebody's going to invent a television. You can interact as the TV's going, right? Look out, somebody is around that. And then they turn and look at you. Really? Is that what you... Okay. Don't laugh. I'll bet you within 2 years they're going to have television like that. You watch. We got to mark this down. It's going to be interactive television. Every show is going to be interactive. So we forget not only our behavior to repeat it, but this force shows us all different ways, so we don't realize one most important thing. Every situation we're in, every good thing we do, every bad thing we do, every difficult situation, every good situation has one and only one common factor. Us the individual. I'm existing in every one of those situations. It's me how I see what goes on the street. It's me how I see what's going around the world. It's me how I see what's on the television. It's me how I even talk with that voice in my head. And according to the Kabbalists, that's our only battle. We need to remember we have no battle with anyone or anything on the outside. We have no battle with anyone or anything on the outside. I just want that to sink in for a minute, because all of us at some point in our lives today are looking at somebody else as the source of our discomfort, our source of not being so happy, our source of frustration, our source of anxiety, or what have you. We're looking at someone else. But the Kabbalists, again, boil it down to its simplicity, because it has to be simple if it applies to every human being on earth. If it's complex, then you start to leave different people out. We have two voices in our head, and that's it. It's the only battle we have. It's the only issue we have in life. It's our ultimately, that's our only spiritual work. We have the two voices. We have the voice of that opponent that's taunting and tempting us to do the reactive thing, to do the self-centered thing, to do the thing that gives us instant gratification. And then we have the voice of the Creator. And the Creator in our head is telling us to do all the good things, the sharing things, to express our godlike nature, because we know only when we do that do we receive the benefit. You can scream and yell at people, you can connive people, you can manipulate people, and you can get what you want. But it won't last. Look at history. Look at our own history. When did it ever last? It doesn't last. But if we let the light of the Creator out of our soul, and we let it shine into the world, somehow, some way, that light is going to make a circuit around the universe, around our world, and it's going to enter into that right person at that right time in the right situation, and it's going to bring us our blessing. It's going to bring us the effect of our actions. We just have to trust that it's not always going to come from the people or the ways we expect it, but it will always show up. So then, acknowledging that our battle is only between those voices in our head, the Kabbalists gave it a name. And sadly, that's been misunderstood for thousands of years. The Kabbalists call it the war, or they call it like this in Aramaic, Milchemet Gog uMagog, the War of Armageddon. But unfortunately, that opponent, every time we're about to do something good, he's got to try and cause us not to see it in the right way, change its meaning, change its understanding. So the War of Armageddon has come to mean some battle with this outer force of the devil, of the negativity, of whatever, or maybe some nation out there. Isn't it funny again, if consciousness is everything, who is supposed to define who the enemy in the War of Armageddon is? So you have every war on earth is against two different peoples. Yes or yes? Now, which one do you think thinks they're wrong? They both think they're right. This one thinks they're right to go to war against these people, and those people think it's right to go to war against them. So we'll never win the War of Armageddon, because the Kabbalists say it's in our own head. And if we will fight that battle in our own head, then the outside will change automatically. What we experience will change automatically. But as long as that opponent can make us look outside of ourselves, at whatever's going on in the world, or at the politicians, or at the diplomats, or at this one or that one, or whoever it might be out there, as long as we're looking at them, what are we missing? We're missing the one common factor, and the only thing we have absolute control over is ourselves. And as we learn here to take control over ourselves, then we have control over our world out there. Because we can define it any which way we want. We've told stories before, no? About people who are in car accidents, bad or good. You see, now you're not willing. You guys want to answer? Bad or good? Right? Most will say it's bad, right? But if in that accident it comes to their awareness, as it happened a number of years back, a man in LA was in a car accident, minor accident, bumped his head, and the EMTs would not let him release him till he had an MRI. So he had an MRI, and guess what? They found a little tiny dot in his brain, and they were able to go in and take it out, and therefore save himself from some kind of brain disease. So was the accident bad or good? Well, first it looked bad, and then it changed to good, right? You get out of bed on the wrong side of the bed. So tomorrow, what do you really do? Do you really make that effort to get out of a different physical side? Or do you just make the effort to get out of the same side, but now in a happy mood? So it's the same side, happy mood. It's not about the bed. It's not about the outside people. It's not about what happens. It's about how we perceive it, what goes on in our consciousness. So that voice of the opponent in our head wants us to translate and interpret everything in a bad way. Oh no, look, now the accident is going to take time, it's going to cost insurance, who knows, whatever. But let me ask you, if 20 years later, that person had had the choice between having that fender bender or not, or dying of brain cancer or not, which do you think they would have chosen? Have the accident, save himself from dying of brain cancer. But in the first moment, the opponent said, oh, terrible, look, now you're late for work and everything that will happen, blah, blah, blah. And now the EMT's making you go to the hospital and get checked. All those things could have gone every moment of that experience until they saw what they saw in the MRI. Then suddenly, the EMT is going from his outer adversary, his outer enemy, would have now been his best friend. Because by not letting him go until he had the MRI, saved his life. So they changed from bad to good. While we're on the subject, and we had a man number of years ago, when I first started in the center, 1988. He was flying from New York to Las Vegas to visit his family. He gets to the airport 5 minutes before the flight. He arrives at the gate. He's walking up to the gate, and literally right in front of him, they close the door and they don't let him in. How do you think he behaved? You got it, exactly. Like some of us probably would have, screaming and yelling and threatening and this, that, and the other thing. And they just said no. So he wanders around the airport for a little while, right? All frustrated. Now he's got to find another flight, this and this and this. About 45 minutes later, he decides he's got to call his family in Vegas and tell them, that he missed the flight and he's got to find another to get on there. So he gets on the phone, his brother answers, and he says, hi, it's me. And his brother starts cursing at him. And he's looking, why are you yelling at me? Like, what's the problem? He says, why didn't you call us sooner? He says, why? What's the big deal? He says, didn't you hear? The plane crashed. So the woman who closed the door on him and refused to let him on, was he his adversary or his savior? Exactly. So you and I here are learning how to just interpret everything for our blessing, and therefore we can make it our blessing. Because the Kabbalists teach us how we decide. Remember those two voices? We can follow the path of the light, or we can follow the path of the opponent. And the Kabbalists teach us the way we decide to go, the universe will guide us. So if a person wants to go the path of the opponent, then they'll find all the justification, the rationale, and the encouragement to stay on that path. Like you and I. Anyone here still holding a grudge for more than 5 years? Okay. The rest of you don't want to raise your hand. It's a little embarrassing. I get it. Okay. But we do now. We're holding the grudge for 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. Right? We're holding the grudge. So we're on the path of what? The opponent? Yes. And the opponent is there, keeps saying, every time you think about, maybe I should forgive them, maybe I should let go, what is the opponent right there and say, what, are you kidding? Do you remember what they said to you? Do you remember how they acted? Do you remember what happened because of what they did or said? And right away you want to stay on that path of the grudge, right? Whereas the light is telling us, no, if you say from the beginning or at any point along the way, you know what? I'm just going to forgive them. I'm going to wish them well, I'm going to let go, and I'm going to move on. Then the universe will find more things for us to do on the path of the light. More reason to let go of things, more reason to forgive, more reasons to be kind, more reasons to even appreciate ourselves more and our talents and abilities. That's what's called Tikkun. You ever heard of karma? Karma. What does karma mean? What goes around comes around, right? Our past will come back and show up for us to repair it. So the Kabbalists call it Tikkun. Because in Aramaic, Tikkun means correction. Means we're not just waiting for it to happen. Yes, it's always cause and effect. But as we're going to speak about here as we continue, how we can decide when and where. Not just wait, like for the wheel of karma to turn and come our way or roll over us, but run after it before it has to reach us. It's Tikkun. So it's up to us. But the beauty of this is either path, the path of the light or the path of the opponent, guess what the ultimate destination of both those paths are? 100% bliss, 100% heaven on earth, 100% pure and perfect beings of light. Both paths lead to the same thing. They just go like this. But ultimately they come back together because there is one infinite power of the Creator, and there's no way we can avoid getting back to being our pure and perfect self. What our free will is, which path will we choose? We take the long way, the painful way of the path of the opponent, or the easier way, the more merciful way, but it's an effort on our part to go the path of the light. So really, the whole purpose of the Kabbalah Center for almost 100 years now is just to teach us how to go the path of the light, how to understand the benefit of going the path of the light, how to understand the mercy of the path of the light. Yes, is it difficult? Is it an effort? Absolutely. But what do you do in life that will really give you any lasting blessing that's not an effort? Anyone here ever got a college degree? A few of you? Was it easy? Did you not have to give up here and there, I don't know, a Friday night party or a weekend vacation or something like that? Yes or yes? Some of you are going, no? Right? You gave up something. You made an effort to achieve it. And therefore, even if you never use that degree as that degree, but you're still completely happy about it, you still feel a sense of satisfaction because you made an effort. So even the path of the opponent, which is just teaching us how to make an effort to be on the path of the light and therefore have lasting fulfillment, it all leads to the end point. Because how big is the light of the Creator? Infinite. How powerful in the true big picture of things, how powerful is darkness? No power at all. That's what we keep reminding ourselves. How do you know that the darkness has no power of itself? Turn on a light, any form of light, and what happens to the darkness? It just goes away. It just disappears. So the darkness has no eternal power. It only has the power that we give it in our mind, because that parasite called the opponent is sitting on our brain, has heard everything we've said, everything that we've done, everything that we experienced, so it knows where our weak spots are. So going the path of the opponent is just to help us find where our weak spots are, so we'll fix them and get back to the other, the path of the light. And therefore, no matter what we do, guess who you're meeting on the path of the opponent? Yourself with all the mistakes you've made. But it doesn't always show up like a big mirror, right? If you ran down that path of the opponent and you really saw a physical mirror and you could see yourself, truly it'd be very easy. But sadly, for us, what we tend to see is other people. It's still a mirror. It's still the same situation. Remember those relationships? It's still a mirror we didn't change. That's why we keep picking the same person, just in a different body or a different situation. But it's the same person, because we didn't realize it's about our change, not their change. It's about our change. So if we don't change, then it just keeps showing up again and again and again and again. I have a student just told me a few weeks ago, 12 years old, she was excited to be a doctor. So she was able to work in a doctor's office, helping out. I'm not sure how much she did, but she's helping out in a doctor's office. 12 years old. She's now, let's say, in her mid-50s. So it's 40 years later. She says, and this was just a recent awareness, at 12 years old, she's in the doctor's office, and the place she grew up, they didn't have cash registers per se. Just open the drawer, you put the money in, and that was that. So at the end of the day, the office manager finds money missing. So guess what? Who do you accuse? The 12-year-old. So she accused the 12-year-old, and of course the 12-year-old didn't do it and is denying it over and over and over again, but the woman keeps saying, no, you took it, you did it, called her grandmother, said, you know what she did, she stole the money, da-da-da. She gets home, she gets a spanking, her grandmother doesn't listen to her denying it, etc., etc. 12 years old. 40 years later, what do you think she's still doing? She's still trying to fight and show that she's right and she knows the truth and she's doing the right thing, etc. Whether it was in her relationships that came and went, whether it's in her job that she's having difficulty with, she started to realize her 12-year-old, that past was showing up in every relationship she was in and in the job she's in. She's still trying to prove that she's right, that she didn't do the bad thing and she's doing the good thing. What does her opponent do? Gives her the perspective that she's out to help everybody else. But by coming here and understanding who's she really facing, her 12-year-old. She's on the path of the opponent, and who keeps showing up every time? That 12-year-old. Her 12-year-old version shows up again. I didn't do it, I'm innocent. Go show them. But now she's an adult, so she's dealing with adults in adult ways, but she's behaving the same way like a 12-year-old, trying to show that she's right and deny that she had any wrongdoing. Well, imagine in a relationship, someone who that's their modus operandi. Are you going to stay in a relationship with a person like that very long? Probably not. So fortunately for her, she's here, and she started to work with the tools, and she starts to deal with her 12-year-old and changing what goes on in her life. Because if she doesn't change it, what's going to happen? It's going to keep repeating. Now, let's look back. The more a person is on that path of the opponent, does it get easier or more difficult? More difficult. But what's the purpose of being more difficult? Is to finally wake us up and say, hey, you're on the wrong path, go on the other path. You have a GPS? So every time you make the wrong turn, what does the GPS say? Recalculating, recalculating, recalculating. So you keep making the wrong turn. What do you keep hearing? The nagging voice of the GPS. So what do? And I didn't know you could do this. My daughter had to teach me. She doesn't even drive. You could change the voice. Right? You can make it from female to male, male to female. You can make it have an accent, things like that. So imagine now the person on that path. Don't like the answer. Recalculating, recalculating. Bad relationship. Okay. Push the button. Now it sounds like a different voice. Okay, it was a man. Now it's a woman's voice. More comforting. Great. Till again, you hear the same thing. Recalculating, recalculating. Okay, now you try a British accent. I don't know if I can say, oh, by Jove, recalculating. All right. But again, what is it really telling? You're off the path. You're off the path. And the longer we don't listen to that voice, what happens? We become miles off the direction, off the route. So we have to go miles to get back. That's why we've got to start paying heed, pay attention to these warnings that we get. Get back on the path of the light. What do we affirm? And now you understand why it's affirmed every week we're here. Greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. Everywhere. The more we'll do that, the more we're turning ourselves faster back on the path of the light. But again, both paths will end up in the same way. So the purpose of the center, by teaching us how to face our tikkun, to deal with our past, is helping us speed up the process. Who wants to wait till the end of one's life to look back and say, I coulda, shoulda, woulda? Let's do it now, when we can change our direction now and live a lot happier, more satisfying lives. That's what we're here to do. If we don't run away from our mistakes, and we face them, and we face our past, like this 12-year-old. So now she faces it. Guess what happens? Once she heals her 12-year-old of having to prove that she's right, etc., now what? All the blessing that was waiting from 12 to her mid-50s, that she was blocked because that 12-year-old was still fighting with her opponent, fighting the outside, all those blessings, guess what? Suddenly show up in her life. 40 years. Imagine your parents put a savings account, or like, I don't know where all these memories coming from. There was a family, I grew up in a tiny town in California, 55,000 people, Redondo Beach, California. I remember growing up, there was this one amazing house, like the biggest house in the city, but nobody lived in it. I couldn't figure out why. It was well maintained, it wasn't run down, it was like huge. Till my father got on the city council. And then I remember asking him one time, we were driving by, I said, what is this? He says, oh, these are people who, when Coca-Cola first came out, they had they had a little mom and pop, like a little corner hole-in-the-wall grocery store type thing. Coca-Cola came down, they bought a few shares of it. And they just left it somewhere. So 40 years later, somebody found the Coca-Cola stock. Now, this was just I don't even know if it was a second home. It might have been a third home, right? Huge, because what happened over those 40 years to Coca-Cola stock? Woo! So imagine, this woman heals her 12-year-old, all that investment that was waiting in the 12-year-old that had 40 years of interest, boom, can now become revealed and bless her life. What does it say in the Bible? Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Meaning once we face our negativity and we break through, then all that light will transform all the chaos to order, all the darkness to light. So then our job is to face it, to confront it, and to win the War of Armageddon that's going on in our head. Because that's the battlefield is here. It's not in the outside. As we've said, it's never on the outside. It's only on the inside. It's here. Just remember, the voice of the opponent is an opponent. It's not us. We don't oppose ourselves. But we've chosen, and only if you've taken Kabbalah 1, you understand the details, but we've chosen to put that opponent there to help us be better people, to help us have lasting fulfillment. But the opponent is not us. So it's okay to beat your opponent. It's okay to beat that voice in your head. In fact, it's necessary if we want all our blessings. So we've got to keep following and following and following. Now, how are we going to do that? Because some of us sitting here, we say, great idea, I understand the concept, but where am I going to find the power to do it? If it beat me for 40 years, how am I going to beat it now? It's a good question, right? You lost for 40 years, what suddenly is going to change? Well, let's remember, as we often remind ourselves here, who are we? I am a pure and perfect being of light. The Creator has already put 100% perfection in our soul. So we may only be expressing, let's be generous, 65% of our potential. So there's 35% of our perfection, of the infinite light of the Creator, that's at hand. We have access to it to defeat our opponent, but we have to understand how to access it. So that's what we have to start doing. Access that perfect part that we have yet to reveal. Draw on it. Because as we said, once you turn on the light, how much fighting can the darkness do? How much resistance can the darkness put up? 0 or 0? Fooled you there, huh? Not yes or yes. 0 or 0. Can't put up any resistance. Darkness cannot put up a fight. You turn on the light, the darkness goes away. So as we will draw on that pure and perfect self and use it to defeat our opponent, and remember that even our 12-year-old was pure and perfect, then we can fight it and we can overcome it. I have another woman, interesting how all these things coincide. She just told me a couple weeks ago what happened to her. She said, also having memories. It's funny, and don't expect not to keep remembering. And don't let the opponent tell you, well, it may be a little uncomfortable. Because it will be uncomfortable to remember these things. So this woman was telling me a few weeks ago that she started to remember, because I've been working with her for a few years now, and I keep running into these blockages that she keeps fighting me on, till I try and confront her a little bit more as she comes to trust me and understand what's going on. And then she had this epiphany. When she was 8 years old, she was playing in the backyard, and she was trying to do just some little silly thing of reaching out and stepping where it was a little precarious or whatever, and she slipped and she skinned her knee. So what do you do as an 8-year-old? You skin your knee. You go into well, yes, you cry. Okay. No, you tough it out, and that's it. So she goes into her mom, right, to do something about it. So her mother was busy with whatever her mother was busy with, and the mother didn't say anything to her per se, but she's telling me as the 8-year-old, what does she perceive? She's now disturbing mom. Mom's got to take the time. She took her into the bathroom. She washed it off. She put alcohol, whatever it was. She put the Band-Aid, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't say anything, but just gave her the impression, you're bothering me. This is a bother. I have to take my time. I have to do this. I was busy with other things. So as she was able to look back on her relationships and her business life, her professional life, she was always hesitant to look for jobs. Always hesitant to look. Why? Because now she came to realize her 8-year-old kept showing up. Don't bother the adult and ask for a job. Don't bother the adult to ask for a good relationship. Don't bother them, because you remember what happened when you bothered your mother, how badly you felt. And it kept showing up again and again. What does tikkun mean? And this is where tikkun comes in. Tikkun, karma, or correction, doesn't mean just face today. But as these awarenesses come to us, yes, we can face today, we can make breakthroughs, and we can start improving it. But where was the source of her blockage? 8 years old. So what we're learning here, run after your 8-year-old. Run after and fix and heal and transform your 8-year-old. You unblock the 8-year-old. Now in her case, she has almost 50 years of interest that could show up, which is what she started doing. And guess what? She came to me last week. She says, guess what? What would you say? Thank you. What? Right? Part of my ego wants to say, well, let me start thinking about it and I'll channel the answer. No, so I say, what? Got a job. Got it? Yes, exactly. She was willing to go and follow the whole process, and you'll be surprised. She had the good fortune that she didn't have to work up to this point, really. She's living meagerly, but she really didn't have to work. So I just want to impress you, this whole idea of not getting a job was not like she was working but didn't like the job. No. Every time she'd go to try something, she would suddenly quit. And then she'd go back and she'd say, oh, no, this is attractive. And then she'd try this. And then she'd quit. And she'd quit and she'd quit. Now, she actually followed A to Z. She got a job. She got a job. Why? Because her 8-year-old, instead of now holding her back and trying to get the attention to be healed and unblocked, the 8-year-old now is pushing her forward. Go get that job. You're not disturbing the adults. The opposite. If you draw on your supernal perfect self, what is your supernal perfect self? Sharing. Now you realize you have so many talents and abilities the Creator gave you. You go into a job now, you have so much to offer. Forget disturbing them. The opposite. You're helping you to be more of your perfect self, and you're helping them also. You're inspiring them. Just because you know so much of the light, you know so much of Kabbalah, that you can share with these people. And whether you say anything verbally, but if you're always sending light, now you're affecting them and waking their soul also. So instead of thinking you're disturbing them and taking from them, you're actually contributing. You're helping them more than they could even realize. This is what it's all about. We have to draw on our supernal self. We have that 100% that's there waiting, but we have to be willing to face our past. We have to be willing to face the old versions of ourselves. We have to be willing to use the tools and the consciousness. And remember, the only thing stopping us is not what's going on the outside. And it's not our 8-year-old or our 12-year-old. The only thing that's stopping us is that opponent in our head that we choose, and hopefully today choose not to, listen to. That's it. You listen to the opponent because it makes a very logical, understandable argument, and it fits everything that goes on in your mind up to now, but it's fitting the not perfect you. Not the perfect you. The perfect you, there's no justification. There's no rationalization for giving into it. The opposite. It's much more advantageous to give in to the positive, because nothing, once you've created that magnetic force of revealing a new part of your soul's light, it's the most powerful magnetic force you can draw from anywhere and everywhere, whatever the answer is. There's a very nice story I want to close up with along those lines. Again, most of these stories taking place hundreds of years ago. So hundreds of years ago, as they still do in some cultures, there was an arranged marriage, right? 3, 4 years old, these 2 4-year-olds were basically engaged, right? Their parents signed the contract, whatever, they were engaged. Kabbalistically, that engagement, when it's done properly, truly Kabbalistically, it's bound those souls. But for whatever reason, as years went on, the families forgot, and one moved here and one moved here, etc., etc. But technically, spiritually, those 2 souls are still bound. So the man, years later, got married, but he was having difficulty having children. Couldn't have children, went for all the prayers and the blessings and the meditation, couldn't have children. So he decided it had to be something was blocking him. He understood, as we're learning, something was holding him back spiritually, because physically there was no reason why. So he starts to pray and meditate. He starts to beg the Creator for answer, solution, etc. And he's wandering out, in the park, kind of to be out in nature and pray and meditate. And all of a sudden, this woman shows up. Says, hi, don't you recognize me? I mean, you're talking whatever, 20, 30, 40 years later. Says, no, I don't. Says, I'm so-and-so, gave the name. Said, and our parents engaged us way back, right? And you know you can't break that bond, and that's why you're having this difficulty. So he begs forgiveness, he heals that situation, etc., thanks her very much, and he goes on and he goes into town before he goes back home, and now he's like smiley, he's happy or whatever, and a few people start to ask him, right? And he happens to come upon the family of this woman. So he goes to the family and he says, look, he says, you know, I just want to apologize, I'm so-and-so, and you remember we were engaged and you made all this thing, that whatever. He says, but I just want to tell you, I really appreciate because, let's call her Miriam, you know, I just saw Miriam and we had our discussion and she forgave me and she let me go. And the family now looking aghast, like they're shocked. What do you mean? Said, well, I was out at this park and, you know, praying to the Creator and and she came, she happened to be there, we were talking and the whole situation, and I begged her forgiveness and she forgave me and let me go, whatever. And they're looking at him like really shocked. Says, like, what's wrong? Says, well, don't you know she died 3 years ago? His prayer, his desire for transformation, for fixing his past, literally brought her spirit from the other side to be present, to heal him, to let go. The light of the Creator is that powerful. We have the capability to make use of that power. It's only listening to the voice of the Creator to make it happen. And as we're sending the light out there, then there's nothing in the universe that can stop that from coming back to us and bringing us blessings except our own doubts, our own fears, and our own worries. So as today, we're starting to look at ourselves, the world, and the way this works differently. So as it says in the Bible, be strong and be of good courage. Just face your negativity. Face the opponent head on, because it has no power over you, has no power over us and the light inside of us. As we'll shine that light, it has to just disappear. And when it disappears, we're going to attract to us all the good that belongs to us. And at the same time, as you and I are showing other people how it can transform our lives, then by reaching in their soul, like will attract light, will touch their heart, will touch their soul, will reach the light inside of them, and they will come to see the same thing. That when they are also strong and courageous, and they're willing not just to wait for things to happen, but go run after their 12-year-old, go run after their 8-year-old, go run after their 20-year-old, go run after any way, place, shape, or form that we created a blockage, and remove that blockage and collect all the blessings that have been waiting for us from that moment, so that not only we are blessed, but all the people around us will be blessed, who will therefore bless other people, and soon we'll have 7.5 billion blessed people on earth, acting with love, kindness, and compassion to everybody. God bless. So I just want to share a story I just received this week. It's one of our Spiritual Sunday viewers, and he says like this. So I thought it inspirational. I know you enjoy hearing stories about the protection of the Zohar, and for those of you who are new, at least I encourage you, at least get this little pocket Zohar carry with you. So he says, so I decided to share with you. Last Sunday, which is a week ago, I was driving home from business meetings in Naples. 75 was not bad, but 95 was. As well, you know what 95 is like. So I received a text while I was driving, but I did not check the phone until I reached the next exit. I pulled off the road for a few seconds to check the text. Then I resumed my drive. I was almost home. The last leg of the journey is on a rural 2-lane highway. Suddenly in front of me were 2 cars speeding towards me. Perhaps they were racing or just dangerously passing. 3 cars, 2 lanes. There was a canal to my right. I slammed on my brakes. I pulled as far off the road as I could. The car in my lane just barely managed to get partly into the other lane. He missed me by only a few feet. I have never been so close to being on a head-on collision in my life. if I had been a few seconds earlier, ... The day before my trip, my daughter, I won't say her name, my daughter received Zohars from the center. She packed one in my suitcase for my protection. So he was carrying the I wrote him back, I said, you got a smart daughter. All right? So this is the kind of thing, I mean, we've all heard different miracles, but just as to understand, miracles happen every day. And a lot of the miracles, frankly, we don't want to see. We don't want to see. Like this guy, he had a near accident, he saw the miracle. What the Kabbalists teach us is we want to learn to appreciate the miracles that happen that we don't see. Now, you're carrying a pocket Zohar with you, and like this. So let's say, he's driving, and this thing was going to take place, but because of something that he had done, it doesn't even take place. The guy had pulled over before, they'd stopped racing or decided not to race, whatever it might have been, and he just drives on the road home. So he gets home and they say, gee, how was the drive, honey? And what would he say? Uneventful. Would you rather have it eventful like this or uneventful? Sometimes those are the greatest miracles. You wake up in the morning, you're healthy. Maybe in a different universe, we were supposed to not be healthy because of whatever our blockages were. But because of the actions of transformation, making use of these tools, maybe we took away the ailment, we took away the difficulty, we took away the challenge, so we don't see it. So life just goes on as usual. So the Kabbalists teach us we need to appreciate that miracles happen all the time that we don't see. So they don't have to be big things, right? It's great. Florida, no hurricanes in 11 years, things like that. That's amazing. But a lot of us can't relate to that. But we can relate to this. We can relate to these sort of things. I had another student who just told me recently. She gave her granddaughter a pocket Zohar to carry because her granddaughter was cutting herself. 3 weeks later, not only is she not cutting herself, but she's now happily doing her schoolwork, she's happy in school, she's making friends, etc. That's a miracle. Those are the miracles that you and I can relate more to, the things that might seem more common, everyday things, but nonetheless are miraculous. So this is the kind of thing, imagine if 7.5 billion people had even just these little miracles happen every day. What kind of world would we see? Would we have all the violence and the hatred? Would we have all the substance abuse? Would we have all the prejudice, etc.? Would it be there? No or no? Absolutely. That's what the center is about. Spread the Zohar, spread the wisdom of Kabbalah, and we can change the planet because it's the light that takes away the darkness. We can channel the light. We can shine the light. We are not the power itself, but we have the capability to bring this power to bear on every human being. And so I just want it to be in your mind because our only limitation is not that we can't print more of these books, but you can imagine it takes help. It takes resources to print them. So frankly, if you know somebody who's a printer who's willing to print them for free, that's great. If you don't, then the donations that you give, the contributions you give help us to do that. Not only to print them, but to spread them around to people to bring protection and blessings. So that's why we always take these few moments. It is a free will offering. Whatever you offer, we're grateful for. But obviously, the faster we can spread the Zohar, the faster we can remove all the pain and suffering. So if I can ask you, and those of you who are watching, you're welcome to join us also. Just take a moment, hold your offering in your hand, your gift. Remember that all our blessings come from the Creator. So we just want to put our love and our kindness, our blessings, our gratitude into this gift, into this offering, that it will go out and touch the heart and souls of every human being on earth. By activating the DNA of the Creator inside, each of us become more and more aware of the power that we wield in the world, the power that the Creator has given us. And we help 7.5 billion people on the planet to be aware that the power of the light is to act with greater love, kindness, compassion towards all human beings for our own benefit, our own blessings, our own protection, simultaneously bringing light, blessings, and peace to everyone else. Just take that moment to inject your light and your love that goes out to bless others, and the universe will bring those blessings back to each of us. And we open our eyes and we say, Amen.